It is Tuesday, March 11th, and in a stunning flip of support, the largest auto union in America has just excoriated the Democrat Party and switched sides publicly, endorsing and supporting President Trump's tariff policy. We're going to show you. Also, just breaking this morning, Trump announcing a surprise sudden increase in Canadian tariffs, raising the tariff from 25 to 50% on all steel and aluminum imports from our northern neighbors. Wait till you see this. Canada's reaction, their new prime minister's reaction, we're going to show you. And Democrats planning on cutting Social Security and Medicare? Yes, you heard that right. This is the craziest story of all. We'll save it to last. All the gaslighting we're hearing from the media and Dems that Trump and Elon are cutting entitlements. Wait till you hear this. What their plan really is, what they're doing behind the scenes to make that a reality. It's pretty sick. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. So last year during the presidential campaign on August 19th, the president of the largest auto workers union in America went to a Kamala Harris rally, gave a speech campaigning for Kamala and for the Democrats, telling Americans how Trump wasn't the answer to fixing the U.S. economy, that he wasn't the answer to helping American workers. Well, what do you know? In a stunning 180-degree flip, Shawn Fain, president of UAW, United Auto Workers, is now making a public plea to all Americans, saying he was wrong. He regrets wholeheartedly what he said on the campaign trail a few months ago. And to his utter amazement, he says, Donald Trump may be the first president of our lives who is actually trying, really working, really trying to do this in the process of making foundational changes to the U.S. economy. That he is right. Watch.
The essence is there. You have come out strongly in favor of his tariffs. Can you explain why?
We're in a crisis mode in this country. You know, there is no single issue in this country that has affected our economy and working class people and their jobs than NAFTA, the USMCA, and our trade laws, our broken trade system. And we're in a crisis mode. And, you know, we are triaging right now. So I hear this debate about, you know, blanket tariffs and all this stuff. But look, we're in a triage situation. Tariffs are an attempt to stop the bleeding from the hemorrhaging of jobs in America for the last 33 years. So, you know, and as we speak right now, I mean, decisions are still being made. Warren Truck Plant right here in Michigan, there's over 2,000 people laid off. And a simple decision, Stellantis is shifting truck production to Mexico. They could change overnight and move those trucks right back here to Warren, Michigan, and put people back to work. You know, you have Deere workers in Racine, Wisconsin. We have Mack truck workers in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where the companies saying they're going to move their jobs to Mexico. So tariffs aren't the end solution, but they are a huge factor in creating and fixing this problem. And just to go one step further, I want to say this because I think it's important. You know, in 1992, I was a 23-year-old man, and I voted for Ross Perot. And the reason I voted for Ross Perot was during the debate between Clinton, Perot, and Bush. Ross Perot talked about that giant sucking sound. And I'll tell you, in 1993, there was a debate between Al Gore and Ross Perot on Larry King Live. Oh, yeah. And Al Gore talked about the four living presidents, Nobel laureate economists, and everyone said this was going to create 400,000 jobs in the first year of NAFTA's inception. And you know what happened? We've lost millions of jobs since then. We've lost 90,000 manufacturing facilities in the United States since the inception of NAFTA. That's 1,800 manufacturing plants per state.
Yeah.
If any nation in the world lost that, their economy would be wrecked. So, you know, we got to stop the debate and the stupidity on this, and leaders got to lead. And that's where we got to go with this. And to end that statement, I'll just say this. Al Gore was wrong, Ross Perot was right, and NAFTA sucks.
So you said in your statement that you've been coordinating with the Trump White House on this. Have you spoken directly to Donald Trump?
No, we haven't spoken directly, but, you know, we've been working with his team. Members of my team have been working with them, and we're telling these stories. We're telling, you know, the realities of what Americans are experiencing, you know, and working to find solutions So we can move forward and fix this broken trade system and get this corrected, because the United States is the cash cow. The United States is the market everyone wants to sell in.
Yeah.
And we should have reciprocal trade laws where people have the same standard of living. I mean, and I'll say this, our neighbors to the south, Mexican workers aren't the enemy. They're being exploited. And it's because of corporate greed, and that's what's got to stop in this country.
So I'm sure Trump remembers this, and you do as well. You had some choice words for him at the convention in Chicago over the summer, the Democratic convention. Let me just play a short clip.
When Donald Trump was president, corporate America ran wild. Donald Trump did not bring back the auto industry. When Donald Trump was president, auto plants closed. Trump did nothing.
So you see something different now. Do you think that it's possible that Donald Trump might just be the president after those long 3 decades you just described? He might just be the president this time to bring back or help bring back manufacturing jobs to the United States?
Well, look, I'll say this. The election's over. Donald Trump is the president. And we want to get to work to fix the problems that are wrong with this country, with our economy. And the American people expect that. They expect leaders to stand up and lead. They don't expect us to sit back, and they don't care about politics. They don't care which party somebody's from. They care about solving their problems. And so that's one thing Donald Trump has done. He's acknowledged the USMCA didn't go far enough. And so, there's an urgency now to fix this problem, and that's what we're going to work on. We're working with the administration now, and we'll see where it ends up. But I will say this. I mean, name me one president in the last 25 years that's talked about doing these things and trying to fix this broken system.
I thought Dems were the workers' party, the party that looked out for American workers, middle-class Americans. Well, not anymore, because the American workers support Trump. Their bosses support Trump. The unions in general now support Trump. Trump's tariff policy, the best thing he could do for this country, for the workers of this country, forcing manufacturing companies around the globe back to this country. No tariff if you build your product in America. Now, this doesn't happen overnight, but in 6 months, in 12 months, I really believe that we're going to see a massive boost to productivity, to jobs, and that we will have brought back our manufacturing base, at least started to, making real progress starting to. And likewise, the other part of this, which people don't mention often, is that we're going to crush China in the process. This doesn't only help America. It doesn't only rebuild the U.S. manufacturing base that's been stripped for parts for 50 years, but likewise, it crushes our largest adversary in the process. It puts China out of business, crushes their business model. For example, one of Europe's largest companies, Siemens, announcing yesterday a $10 billion investment in the U.S. They're moving their manufacturing plants into the U.S., showing the facility in this interview that they're about to begin hiring Americans for in Texas and in California. These new jobs, they say, will be manufacturing switchboards, which they previously were building where? In China. Watch.
What are you going to be doing in that shiny new plant behind you?
So this plant behind me is producing switchboards. So if you want to electrify a data center, you need switchboards. And this is a huge demand.
Can I just ask you for some clarity here? Are these bolt-ons or additions, add-ons to existing plants? I just want it to be clear for our viewers.
This is a very new plant. So we have another plant nearby in Grand Prairie. This one in Fort Worth is a brand new one. We, along with Bonoma, we invested almost $300 million. This will create 900 new jobs. These are new capacities running.
I just wanted to tell you, as you know, the big word of the day here is tariffs, and President Trump has threatened very seriously to slap 25% tariffs on all European goods coming into the United States. He calls them reciprocal tariffs. Does your build out here in the United States help you dodge some of that or mitigate some of the pain from that?
Yeah, it does, definitively. And I can understand the logic, which is all fair, having a level playing field. That's good. bringing manufacturing back to the United States, creating jobs, that's good, but also having technological leadership, which is the motivation behind. So I can tick the box in all aspects. Sometimes the speed is a little bit of a challenge because you need to relocate manufacturing. That takes a little bit of time. But we did that in the past, and we will continue to do it in the future.
And it's so rich hearing some Republicans starting to push back against these tariffs because the markets are finally correcting a bit. Take Rand Paul, who personally I like a lot. He's one of my favorite senators, but he says, he's a firm believer in free trade. But that's the thing, right? We don't have free trade. All these countries are tariffing us. They've been tariffing the U.S. for decades, and we've had no tariffs in return. You see what Trump's doing? Trump would love free trade. That's why he's doing this, to make it fair, to equalize, like he says. In another story, Canada has made another massive error, imposing a 25% tariff or surcharge on all electricity exports to the U.S. Ontario's MP Doug Ford made the announcement yesterday, saying until President Trump's tariffs are off the table for good, we're putting a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the U.S. Ontario doesn't want this trade war, but we won't back down until it's over. Watch.
President Trump did an unprovoked attack on our country, and that's unacceptable.
Are you serious when you say that you would shut off the supply of electricity? I think one report quoted you as saying with a smile on your face.
Well, that's the last thing I want to do, Carl. I want to send more electricity down to the U.S., to our closest allies or our best neighbors in the world. I want to send more electricity. Is it a tool in our toolkit? 100%. And as he continues to hurt Canadian families, Ontario families, I won't hesitate to do that.
Now, this is the second big mistake Canada's made since this trade war started. First, under Trudeau, Canada slapped China with a 100% tariff on all electric vehicle imports, trying to curry favor with Trump. In response, China announced plans to impose a 100% tariff in response on Canadian rapeseed canola oil and 25% on all aquatic and pork products. So now Canada is being crushed by China, crushed by the U.S. Watch their Commerce Secretary explain the utter mess Canada's Liberal Party has got them into, saying Trump's tariffs aren't hurting us so much, but the retaliatory tariffs that Canada's putting on America, the tariffs that they're doing to themselves, are crushing their economy. Watch.
Escalation in tariffs with China is a big deal for British Columbia. The initial tariffs that were put on by Canada as an attempt to curry favor with the president, in my opinion, have not had the intended effect. The president has been completely indifferent to our policy towards China, and in fact, he doesn't seem to have any designs on treating Canada better than China. It's a very strange thing. We understood that he was concerned about security issues related to China, and yet he is coming after Canada far more aggressively than he is the government of China. I think it'll be necessary for the federal government to have a look at tariff policy with respect to trading partners around the world, understanding that we don't want to get crushed between the two biggest economies in the world, the American and the Chinese economies, and ensuring we're diversifying around the world. But obviously, it's a very challenging time right now.
Trump responding in kind, writing on Truth Social this morning, based on Ontario, Canada, placing a 25% tariff on electricity coming into the U.S., I've instructed my Secretary of Commerce to add an additional 25% tariff to 50% on all steel and aluminum coming into the U.S. from Canada, one of the highest tariffing nations anywhere in the world. This will go into effect tomorrow morning, March 12th. Also, Canada must immediately drop their anti-American farmer tariff of 250% on various U.S. dairy products, which has long been considered outrageous. I will shortly be declaring a national emergency on electricity within the threatened area, which is like the Great Lakes area. Canada pays very little for national security, relying on the United States for military protection. We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of $200 billion a year. Why? This cannot continue. The only thing that makes sense is for Canada to become our cherished 51st state. This would make all tariffs and everything else totally disappear. Canadians' taxes will be very reduced. They will be more secure militarily and otherwise than ever before. There will be no longer a northern border problem, and the greatest and most powerful nation in the world will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever. And Canada will be a big part of that. The artificial line of separation drawn many years ago will finally disappear, and we will have the safest and most beautiful nation anywhere in the world. Let me know in the comments what you think about this, about Canada becoming our 51st state. I have pros and cons about this. I mean, I would love to buy real estate in British Columbia on the coast of BC. Absolutely stunning up there. But, I mean, there's a lot of downsides with this. Let me know what you think. In another story, the Democrat Party moves to cut entitlements for Americans, cutting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Yes, you heard that right. The Democrats are working in unison to cut Social Security and Medicare. The story is just crazy. It shows the nastiness of politics. So here's what's happening. Dems have received their new marching orders. They've found an issue to run on, to champion. The only problem is it's not true. It's a lie. They've been throwing everything they could against the wall to see what sticks. They didn't know what to do after Trump has crushed them in the election, and since then his popularity keeps rising. They've been looking for an issue. Well, they've found it. Dem leadership sending out talking points to their members to hammer home all day, every day, that Trump, Elon, and Republicans are cutting entitlements, cutting Social Security and Medicare, and that Dems are fighting to stop that. That's what they're now pushing. Watch.
There are estimates out there that tens of thousands of people with disabilities die while they're waiting for those benefits to come to fruition. So if you ask me, I think this is a prelude not only to cutting benefits, but to privatizing Social Security itself. I think that's in the back of them. If you
on tour and it's coming to a city near you, and they are going to cut your Social Security, they're going to cut your Medicaid, they're going to cut your Medicare, they're going to cut your Section 8, and you're not going to get money. Your prices are not going to go down.
What he is doing is cutting with a chainsaw important services that benefit every American to make room for those tax cuts for the very rich. And so they want to cut things like Medicaid, Medicare, and on top of that, they will add to the deficit and debt.
The one big problem with that message is that it's not true. So get this. How do you make it true? How do you turn that fantasy into reality? By forcing cuts to these programs. The funding bill, the new CR that Speaker Mike Johnson and Trump put forward, a clean CR, which means more or less it maintains spending levels from last year, and it fully funds Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And not one Democrat's voting yes. Democrat leadership's urging their members to vote no on funding Social Security. Watch.
So let's take a look at what Ilhan Omar said earlier today, because here we are again up against a deadline at the end of this week to get this continuing resolution or a budget deal so that the government doesn't shut down. Here she is.
Republicans have not been willing to negotiate with us, whether it's in the House or in the Senate. They are doing this on their own and without a negotiation. This is going to be a full government shutdown. We haven't been able to pass a single approved bill. And at this moment, they are gambling with the lives and the resources of the American people.
They want the government shutdown, not because they think it'll help them, but because the lie that they've been telling, that they want to run on, that Trump's cutting Social Security, then becomes true. It's crazy.